Siapa nak record? Tak record lah. Siapa yang nak record?
Submit lah.
Oh, dah.
Dah.
Okay. Dah mute.
Boleh tengok boleh tengok pula. Boleh nampak?
Boleh.
Okay, so the topic I want to present is the web server. So my name is Qi Fang and I'm from Group 1. So what is the web server? So web server is actually a software and hardware that use HTTP and other protocol to respond to client requests made over the World Wide Web. So a web server actually contains two, which is hardware and software. So web server hardware is connected to the internet and allow data to be exchanged with other connected device, while the web server software is control how a user with a it control how the user access the host file. So the example of the web server is Apache HTTP server, Microsoft Internet Information Service (IIS), NIX and Light TPD and Sun Java System web server. So the architecture of the web server it can be two type of the architecture, which is 2-tier and 3-tier. So for 2-tier architecture is the client and server architecture, which client that are connected directly to the server, while the 3-tier architecture consists of client type, meter type, and information type. So the 3-tier architecture is actually can help to solve the problems in type 2. So mostly we can use the 3-tier architecture for the web server lah. So this is the evolution version of web server. So we can see each of the this is all the history of the development of each web server. This is for the Apache HTTP server. So you can see that this is the initial release and latest release. So I think this is just we can just look through. And this is for the IIS. So as you can see, we can see the start that is since the 2003 years until now. And this is for the Oracle iPlanet web server. And the initial release is since December 1994, and the stable release is on October 2017. So the most popular web server in this year. So for this one, I can show you the graph for easy understanding. So this is the graph you can see from 1995 until now. So you can see the graph is Apache actually mainly is the top popular against this until 2014, and the Microsoft IIS goes on, and until now the most popular is the Linux. So this is for the popular among this, and this is the comparison between the web server. So this website actually show many can show us the list of the comparison among this server. So we can just choose what we want to see, and like the Apache and IIS. So it shows us what feature the web server content and what kind of what they can do and what they cannot do, and show us a table. So I think this website I can send to you, and you can go and try yourself by checking what type of web server you want to check. And I think just That's all. Thank you.
Okay, next group. Group Fajar. Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nampak kan tadi?
Ya, nampak.
Nampak tak?
Nampak.
Okay, this is a presentation for two-tier architecture and three-tier architecture. So the introduction, multi-tier architecture in which presentation, application processing and data management function are physically separated. Software architecture will consist of four things, which is one tier, two tier, three tier, and n-tier architecture. A tier can also be referred to as a layer, which presentation for three layer. Presentation layer is also known as a client layer, top layer of this application. This layer can access the web page, and function of this layer is to communicate with the application layer. Next is the application layer, known as the logical layer. It controls an application functionality by performing data processing and act as a mediator between the presentation and the database layer. In simple word, is to perform operation on the application. And then next is data layer. Data layer store in this layer. Application layer communicate with the database layer to retrieve data. Then the purpose for this one is for enterprise level client server application development, provide solution for scalability, security, fault tolerance, and maintainability. And then it also helps the developer to create flexible and reusable application. It separate user application and physical database. And then the next one is to support multiple view of data. Two-tier, which is a two-tier architecture in DBMS, is a software architecture in which presentation layer or interface runs on a client, such as PC, mobile, tablet. And a data layer or data structure gets stored on a server called the second tier. Two-tier architecture provide added security to the DBMS as it is not exposed to the end user directly. It also provide direct and faster communication. The next one is separating these two components into different locations represents a two-tier architecture as opposed to a single-tier architecture. Other kind of multi-tier architecture and add additional layer in distributed software design. The two-tier architecture example is a contact management system created using Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Access. This is the two-tier diagram, presentation layer, and then the server and the database. This is for the three-tier. A three-tier architecture in DBMS is the development and maintenance of functional processes, logic, data access, data storage, and the user interface is done independently as separate module. Three-tier architecture contain a presentation layer, application layer, and a database layer as mentioned just now. And then the three-tier database architecture design is an extension of two-tier, which I already explained just now. Three-tier architecture has the following layers: presentation layer, which on the PC, tablet, and mobile; application layer, which is the server. It is the intermediate layer, which has the function for client layer and it is used to make communication faster between client and data layer. It provides the business processes, logic, and the data access. The next one is the database server. The application layer is responsible for communicating the user request to the database and send the response from the DBMS to the user. The application layer also process functional logic, constraints, and rules before passing data to the user or down to the DBMS. This is the goal of three-tier client server architecture is to separate the user application and physical database. to support the BMS characteristic, program data independence, support multiple views of the data. Three-tier architecture example, any large website on the internet. This is the three-tier diagram. Advantage of two-tier, high is internet network where the separation of public network and private network occur. Next one is provide redundancy of network services, limit available data on access, and then simplifies end user settings in client application. Maximum user satisfaction is gained with accurate and fast prototyping through robust tools applicable to homogeneous environment, which hardware and software from one vendor. Higher performance when DB server and business logic is physically attached. Next is the disadvantages of two-tier. Performance becomes slow when the number of the user increase. It is very high in term of cost. Changing rules and regulation of business setting make it slow. Problem in controlling the new versions of and distribution of updation. The dispersion of application when there is changes, it will give effect to all the existing clients. Changes in database structure when intimate result in prevailing structure. Next is the advantages of three-tier architecture. Improve scalability. Server can be deployed on many machines. The database doesn't make longer connection with every client. Improve data integrity, which all update information goes through second tier. The next one is improve security, which client doesn't have direct access to the database. Load balancing is division of core business from database server. High performance, better to reuse, scalability, and easy to maintain and modify. The disadvantages of three-tier architecture, which more complex than two-tier. Client does not maintain persistent database connection, may require a separate proxy server, and then the network traffic will be increased if a separate proxy server is used. Physical separation of application server that contain business logic function and database server that whole database may affect performance. Improve complexity and two-tier versus three-tier. The two-tier architecture consists of two layers, client tier and database tier. The three tiers consist of client tier, middle tier, and information tier, which the two-tier applications are generally easier to build and less expensive overall due to their lower complexity, which three-tier is more difficult and due to its complexity. In a two-tier architecture, performance is more sensitive to the hardware on which the client runs, as well as the speed of the network connection. And then which the three-tier performance can also depend on the hardware as well as the speed of the network connection. However, it is much better than two-tier architecture. The last one is in two-tier, although cost is a factor, ease for maintenance should be considered separately. Keeping the client informed in a two-tier architecture can be difficult. For the three-tier, it is more difficult to maintain the three-tier architecture in the long run. That's all. All right.
Okay. So next. Oh.
I guess I'll go next.
Okay, no.
Okay. Right. So, hello, my name is Noah, and I will be presenting the web browser. So, a web browser is an application for accessing the World Wide Web. It basically just receives, sends and interprets data across the World Wide Web. When the user requests a web page, this is basically when the user requests a web page from a particular website, the web browser retrieves the necessary content from a web server and then displays the front page on the user's device. The examples of web browsers are Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Opera, and also Microsoft Edge and Safari and so on. The web browser, all web browsers have a architecture. They usually use the same architecture, which is this architecture. So it will consist of the controller, the client, uh, and also the interpreter. So there are many commercial websites. Let's see, client programs. So the browser renders and displays a document, keeping an internal list of where elements and documents are displayed on the screen. The controller obtains the coordinates of the user's cursor from windowing systems and combines them with the coordinates of the objects in the page. If a link has been selected, the controller extracts the scheme from the URL. This determines which client will be used to fetch the document. The browser fetches the document and, depending on the document type, calls the appropriate interpreter to render and display the document. So it can say, as from the diagram here, the client program would be like the protocol, the would be uh, the one that is responsible for determining what protocol the data is receiving or sending, and then the controller will use that to determine which interpreter to interpret the data, so it can show you on your browser. So here from the network, it goes to HTTPS, and FTP, or FTP, and the client program will determine which protocol it's using, and then it will send that to the controller, and the controller will use that information to determine which interpreter will be needed to translate that data into HTML, XML, or PDF to your browser. All right, so the evolution of web browser is very simple. Next step was quotation mark, the first browser, but it was just used for the next cube. So only people who had the next cube would be able to use the browser. But then came in Mosaic. Mosaic helped to popularize the World Wide Web, and it garnered the public's attention to it, and introduced the concept to the whole world. And then one of the lead developers from Mosaic decided to go to be independent and create the Netscape. Netscape was Netscape at the time was the most popular web browser, because while Mosaic was the instrument to introduce the web browser, Netscape gave the convenience and gave more features as a web browser than the Mosaic. From the Mosaic and the Netscape is when the top-down feature UI of where we always see on every single browser uh, started. But in next step, it wasn't so much of a top-down; it was more tabbed. There was so and then after that, after that, starts it along came Internet Explorer, which started the browser wars. So from uh, so until IE7, everyone kept on trying to uh, make better browsers than Netscape. Uh, After IE7, it came out that IE7 was better, uh, which then got overtaken by Google Chrome in 2008. Google Chrome introduced the not introduced. It gave more features like plugins and the uses of applets into the browser, which gave more features and implemented more, how you say, quality of life for the web browser. And and until now, the Chrome has always been the number one web browser for everyone to use, even to this day. That But this is more towards because they dominate the market, and it's more publicly accessible, and more people know about Chrome than the others. People do know about Firefox and people do know about Opera, but they don't. They prefer to use Chrome because it's commercially publicly people say it is reliable, and that is all. That is all from me. Thank you.
Hello. I think I'm going next. Ada. So you guys can see the screen.
Yep.
Hello.
Yes, we can see.
Yes, yes. Clear. Yeah.
Today I'm going to present about Git and GitHub. So what is Git? So Git is a version control system designed to make it easier to have multiple versions of a code base, sometimes across multiple developers or teams. So it allows you to see change you make to your code and easily revert them. So remember, Git is not GitHub. So what is GitHub? GitHub is a website that hosts Git repositories on a remote server. So hosting repositories on GitHub facilitates the sharing of code base among teams by providing a GUI to easily fork or clone repos to a local machine. So by pushing your repositories to GitHub, you will pretty much automatically create your own developer portfolio as well. So when you push your project into GitHub, so basically you make your own portfolio in GitHub. So what is advantages and disadvantages of Git? So firstly, advantages of Git is community. So for the community, Git is very popular among open source project. So many community has their own third-party libraries, so you can use the third-party libraries to use in your project. So second, branching capabilities. So Git branches are cheap and easy to merge. So you can use this Git to make your project. And lastly, efficient. Because it eliminates everything from the time wasted passing commits over a network connection to the man hours required to integrate changes in centralized version control system. So what are disadvantages of Git? So disadvantages of Git is it have poor GUI, and second, it lacks Windows support and doesn't track empty folders. And lastly, there is no built-in access control and doesn't support binary files. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of Git. So next, advantage and disadvantage of GitHub. So advantage of GitHub is it make it easy to contribute to your open source project. So it means if you use GitHub in your project, you can easily to include your documentation and give the feedback on your project. So other developers also can contribute on your project. So that's why it called open source project. So next for the documentation, if you know, with GitHub we can have an excellent documentation. We already learned with Go, if you remember, last semester, subject artificial intelligence. We can use GitHub as our documentation, for our documentation for our project. So next, showcase your work. So as you know, we upload our project, our works into GitHub. So other developer also can see your work. So basically, it's like your portfolio. But someone call me. Okay, next, Markdown. For Markdown, oh, sorry. And lastly, okay, we go to this advantage of GitHub. So the disadvantages of GitHub is the security. So as you know, GitHub security, we need to log in into the GitHub, but it has trick that someone can log in into your account. So the security is one of the advantage of the GitHub. So next, for the pricing, so there is some features on GitHub that we need to pay. So if we have the money, so we can use the features. If don't, we can use the feature. Okay, next, what are the differences of Git and GitHub? Okay, Git is installed and maintained on our local system. For GitHub, it is usually in a cloud base. So basically, Git is a high quality version control system, and GitHub is a cloud-based hosting service. So this is another differences of Git and GitHub. So Git is installed locally, and GitHub is hosted in the cloud. So later I will share the differences of Git and GitHub in the group. So I will move forward. So how to install Git? So you can check if your Windows machine have Git or not. So by using command prompt, you can check your Git version. So by typing the Git version in command prompt, so it will show you Git version. So this is my machine Git version. So basically, if you don't have Git, if you install GitHub, automatically it will install Git into your desktop. So if you have GitHub, so you have Git in your desktop. Okay, how to install GitHub? So you can go to github.com and install. If you use Mac, so you download for Mac. If you use Windows, so you go for Windows. So how to configure GitHub? We need to sign in to GitHub or GitHub Enterprise. So in the upper right corner of the page, you can click your profile photo and click setting. So do I need to demonstrate to configure this, or just I read the instruction?
Nah, You'll be fine. Just read the instructions.
So I just read the instruction again.
It's okay.
So in the section, you can go to sidebar and click emails. Copy the email address and you like to use in your local Git configuration. And return to GitHub desktop. Use the 5 minute and then click option. And in the option windows, click Git. In the name field, type the name you like to use for your Git configuration. In the email feed, paste the email address you copied from GitHub or GitHub Enterprise account settings and click save. So basically, you already set up your GitHub in your desktop. So I think that's all from me. So that's all for me. I think we can proceed with another topic.
Can I go next?
Okay.
Okay. Wait. I share my screen first. Can you all see my screen?
Lagu raya.
Yeah.
Can.
Okay. Dia dengar. Okay. Assalamualaikum and hi. My name is Mohamad Luqman bin Mohamad Azman and I'm from Group 7. So I will be presenting the topic back-end development. So first, what is back-end developer? Back-end developer is the person who is in charge to first create the functional system, second maintain the system, third testing the system, and finally debugging the system. So these are the skills that needed to be back-end developer. First is maintaining and create the server. Second, maintaining and create a database. Third, you have to know the programming language that such as Python, PHP, Ruby, Java, and Go, and also knowledge about API. So usually backend developer contains more programmer when working in group rather than front-end developer. So okay, so what is a backend framework? Backend framework is a foundation where developers can make application is a faster and a standardized way. So these are the list of framework that is well known, such as Django, Laravel, Express, JS, ASP.NET, Spring Boot, and finally Flask. So there are many features that is provided in each framework. Each has its unique feature. Depend on developer which framework to use. So how back-end development work? So here in the diagram, we can see that there is two components in personal computer, which is web browser and cookies. So to access the web server, the PC will send the HTTP request to access the web server, and then the web server will decide to accept the request or not. And if it's accept the request, then it will send the HTTP response to the PC. Okay, then so how back-end development work? Back-end developers good code that allows database and application to communicate with one another. Second, backend development language handles the behind-the-scenes functionality of web applications. So there are three parts in backend, which is server, application, and database. So in backend, every information will be stored and organized by backend system. Backend is very crucial. Is a crucial part in any system or application. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of using backend framework? So the advantages of using the backend framework is that first, it is time saving. Second, it is efficient, have have more time in developing software development rather than taking more time to prepare the environment and tools for the development. And the third advantages is cleaner and extensible. It gives more clean code and accessible for future reference as it's follow design pattern of each framework. So next, what is the advantages of using backend framework? First, it has it's no personalized automated operation. There is no alternative for specialized atomic services, making market difficulties impossible to fix. Second is limited count operation. There are only a few count operations that fluctuate from time to time and do not surpass 160 characters. Finally, it has less control. Consumers have less network power, which prevents them from carrying out their desired activities. So these are most popular backend framework. So we can see that the first place of the most popular backend framework is Laravel. So what is Laravel? Laravel is an open source MVC framework written in PHP for web application development created in 2011 by Taylor Otwell as a derivation of Symfony. It's also distributed under an MIT license. It all maintains all available code on GitHub and is listed based on GitHub and Overflow scores as the most popular PHP framework, followed by Symfony, Cordelgine, Git, and other. As of August 2014, it is the most followed PHP project on GitHub. So, and second is Django. So what is Django? Django is a high-level Python web framework that encourages rapid development and clean, pragmatic design. Built by experienced developers, it takes care of much of the hassle web development, so you can focus on writing your app without needing to reinvent to it. It is free and open source. So third and finally, Flask. So Flask is a micro web framework written in Python. It is classified as a micro framework because it does not require particular tools or library. There is no database abstraction layer, form validation, or any other component where pre-existing third-party libraries provide common functions. However, Flask supports the stages that can add application features as if they were implemented in Flask itself. The stage itself for object relation, mapper, form validation, upload handling, various open authentication technologies, and several common framework-related tools. Application that use the Flask framework includes Pinterest and LinkedIn. So that's all from me. Thank you. Wait.
So who's next? Ridhwan. Hello, Ridhwan.
Okay. Yeah. Can you see my slide? Hello.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Assalamualaikum and good evening, everyone. Okay, I'm a group from Group X, represent about the full stack developer. Okay. Okay, what is a full stack developer? Full stack developer is a software developer who can work on both client side and server side, which is the front end and the back end. To execute their work properly, full stack developer must have some knowledge of a wide range of coding specialty, from database to graphic design and UI UX management. For an example, a teeny independent gaming group with only a few members developing a modest simulator could only need one back-end developer and one front-end developer to complete the project. And if the group is more smaller, they may have just have one full-stack developer who oversee the entire app. And next, what is the full stack framework? A full stack web framework is a framework that supports development of framework front-end user interface and the back-end logic, also with the combination with a database. A full stack web framework has a functionality from the client side to data storage at server. Full stack developer also use framework to develop, optimize, maintain website and other web application. And next, how full stack development work? Full stack development refer to the development of both back-end server side and front-end client side. The front-end development consists of the entire user-facing part of software development. It is the responsibility of the front-end developer to implement visual elements, for example, how the software for an application will look and interact and operate with the user. As for the back-end development, it is done to make a program functional well. Developer who work at the back end spend a lot of time creating and working with the database. Okay, next the advantage and the disadvantage using the full stack framework. The advantage is the they can master all the approach used in the development project, and next they can assist all members of the team. Can minimize the project cost and can transition between the front end and back end development depending on the situation. The disadvantage of the full stack development work is it is possible that the solution chosen is inappropriate for the project. The solution adopted may be influenced by the developer ability. And next, a key person risk may occur as a result of a solution. And lastly, being a full stack developer is becoming more challenging. Most popular full stack framework is firstly is a Node.js, the Django, second and third the Laravel, fourth for Android SDK, 5 Spring Boot, and 6 ASP.NET, 7 a Ruby Rails, and 8 Symfony, and 9 .NET, and 10 Spring. How we get the most popular it's from this website. Choose it vote from the developer itself. Yeah. Okay, this is I got all the most popular framework from this website. This is the developer is set up what this. As you can see, the Node.js have a 137k vote, and the Django, and next is Spring.NET, and SDK, Spring Boot, Laravel, Symfony, .NET, Rail, Next.js, Connector, and Spring. Okay. Yeah, that's it from me. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Okay, Group Hidayah.
Yep.
Okay. After Group Hidayah, Group ada Brynner.
Nampak.
Ya, boleh.
Okay, so I will present about front-end development. What is front-end developer? Front-end developer is a person who builds the front-end portion of websites and web applications, a part that users actually see and interact with, which is UI.
and create website and web applications using web languages such as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Front-end framework is a scaffold for building of our front end. It usually includes some way to structure our files, for example, via components or a CSS preprocessor, make Ajax requests, style our components, and associate data with DOM elements. How front-end framework exists? Complex interfaces are usually made of the same components. You should be able to create and use these components to easily create new pages. Since DOM manipulations are slow, you want to perform as few element updates as possible. Your code should be maintainable, easy for you and others to read, test, and change. These are the example of front-end framework: Bootstrap, Semantic IO, Vue, React, and Angular. How front-end development work? A front-end developer uses web languages like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to construct websites and applications that people can access and interact with. The design elements you see on the website were produced by a front-end developer. Advantages using front-end framework are easy and quick to get started. They are great for prototyping. Reduce the amount of code you must write and be more flexible to solve one problem for a specific application. A consistent, standardized front-end approach. It is also more reliable because this code is widely used, especially open source, and also frequently updated. And the last advantage is help is readily available. Disadvantages using front-end framework are overly complex for simple projects. These frameworks can add unnecessary block to a simple loading page that don't often benefit from the efficiencies they provided. Wasted time, required more time down the road to add the features and customizations. Next is not learning how to code. You will only be learning the framework, not how to code it. You need to understand the code which powers the framework. And the last is technical debt, which is the developers need to understand the framework in order for them to develop it. Most popular front-end framework is React. It is the open source framework developed and created by Facebook. This framework is the best UI framework of 2022, used by a majority of the front-end developers, according to Stack Overflow Developer Survey in 2021. The pros is an open source library with a diversity of tools, and the steady code is supplied by one direction data movement. The cons is absence of documentation due to significant phase development and the comparatively long learning curve. That's from me. Thank you.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. Uh, Assalamualaikum. Hello, you guys can see my slide.
Yes, we can see.
Are you sure you can see?
Yes, I'm sure I can see.
Oh, wait.
Awak nak buat.
So today, my topic is about the Xampp server package and the WAM server package. So what is WAM and server package? WAM and Xampp server are determined to be free and open source web server that is designed to make a server to work on your PC. Both of these types comprise PHP, Apache, and multiple other software needed to make an application and the website function. For the sake of database and web server content and MySQL, on the other hand, Xampp and now comes with Maria database instead of MySQL. Both of these stacks are very much beneficial to smoothly operate and evaluate web locally for the end user desktop or laptop. However, both consist of similar kind of software needed for operating web server, but they also have some kind of dissimilarity based on their functionalities. So this is the advantage and disadvantage of the WAM and the WAM server. The advantage of Xampp server is it's easy to configure and use. Also, Xampp is a cross-platform software available for all kind of operating systems such as Linux and Windows. Xampp also let the user to initiate and end the whole server plus database stack with just one command. The disadvantage of Xampp is setting Xampp are quite difficult to do if compared to WAM server. So the advantage of web server is web server is easy to use when user want to change the configuration. WAM is easy to code in PHP and create database in MySQL and Windows. WAM available for 64-bit and 34 bits. The disadvantage of WAM server is it's not easy to install if compared with Xampp. So WAM and web server. WAM and acronym that stand for Windows, Apache, and MySQL. Good to know that WAM derived for LAMP. The L stand for the Linux. A software stack which means installing WAM, install Apache, MySQL, and PHP and our operating system. Even though that they are usually bundled up, you cannot also install them separately. So app server, a full feature of Apache, MySQL, PHP, and PHP admin. Necessary utility for helping you start using the content management system such as WordPress. App server will install Apache, PHP, and MySQL, and also the PHP MyAdmin. Once app server is installed, you will have the access to web server and another database server. So this is the architecture for the Xampp server. So the Xampp server, this one is the client and this one is the server. So the client will request a data request to Xampp server. The whole transmission is using by router. So the Xampp server will be accepting and reply back the data request to the client. So this is the web server architecture. The client will be go through the internet and through the web server. The web server will be request the data request through the MySQL database, and then reply back to through the internet and to the client The whole transmission is used by using the internet server. So the installation for Xampp server. So open the Xampp, go to the website, and click for the Windows. If you are using Windows, click for the download for Xampp for Windows, or if using your Linux, click for the Xampp for download for Xampp Linux. And then after downloading the installer, double click it and you find double-click it, and then allow to change your device, and then just press yes. Click the next setup window for the setup window, and just next, and click all the component that you want to use. For example, MySQL, Mercury, Mason, Tomcat, and also the PHP MyAdmin, FX, and Mail. Click next, and then choose your folder location. For me, just let it default setup, and then click OK. And that's all for the and also select the language. If please don't use German language, and use the American flag language. So that's all for the installation for the Xampp server. So now installation for the WAM server. So open the WAM from WAM website. So after you accepting you have to select I accept the agreement from the WAM, and then choose your location where you want to download it, and then just next, and then just wait for and then done. That's for the installation for the web server. So, the web server is more easier than the Xampp. So next is the web configuration. The web configuration is just many services. You can see at the option of the start, stop, and restart all the service by clicking on the web server icon. The change database, right click on the, so basically all the configuration that you can use. So PHP version, right click on the web icon, open the tool and then select tools and then change PLP CSL CLI version and click on the PHP version if you want. Visual host, you can easily add a visual host via the web interface of the web server. Open your local host in your browser and click on the add visual host. Change Apache port. By default, Apache web server run on the port 80. If you want to use the different port for Apache, you can do it from the web server control panel. Right click on the icon and open the toolbox and click use port other than 80. So enter your new port number in the dialog, so and then press OK. So change the DMS port. By default, the DMS port is run on the 3306. If you want to use a different port for this one, same as the Apache port, right click on the WAM icon in the bottom, select tools and click use port other than 3306. Enter the new port in the dialog box and then click OK. Empty log. Web server provided functionality to clear logs and the control panel. Select tools and empty you find all the option of removing the logs. Change language, you can change language on web server control panel, right click on the web, open tool dialog and select language and click on your required language. So Xampp configuration is you start the Xampp control panel through the run as administrator option. Xampp control panel will appear on the screen. Click on start action to start the Apache and MySQL module. Change the module port. Open the Xampp control panel in Apache module service. Click on the configuration button. Click on the Apache by pressing Ctrl F key. Find the listen 80 and replace it with other port like 81 or 60, 1980, and then save the file. So this is how to use the Xampp server. After installing the Xampp, open the Xampp control panel, run the Apache, and the MySQL when to use it by pressing the start button action, because Apache is a web server and the MySQL is a database. So this is the Xampp control panel. Just click the start button on the action category. So pressing the admin button and MySQL will open the PHP admin. So this is the PHP admin, the SQL database. Next is how to use the WAM server. So this is the WAM control panel when the WAM icon is being created. To start and stop all this, restart the server is press all start all the service in the control one. So this is start all service, stop all service, and restart all service. The my project is to consist of the project that you have, this one. And then same as Xampp, the PHP my admin is to open the PHP my admin database. So that's all for me.
Okay, I think all groups already present. So is there anyone left? I think no. Okay guys. Boleh kot apa ada apa nama tu? Peer evaluation marks. And then give to who's the leader? Ada Danieal.
Ke Hidayah?
Oh, Hidayah leader.
Tak.
Adam Danieal leader. Okay.
Adam.
Me. I think we be the leader. So later you guys send me the evaluation marks.
Yang evaluation mark tu kan, yang kan kena letak nama semua orang tu kan. So dia akan 01 lah kan sebab bahagian nama kita kan.
Oh, kena tulis nama, bukan tulis 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8.
Stop recording dulu.
Oh, okay. Just Okay. Okay dah. Biar. So kiranya group member tu bukan tulis 1 2 3 2 8.
Mana ni?
Kriteria.
Kat mana ni? Kat mana ni kau?
Set evaluation criteria tu.
Sekarang ni evaluation criteria tu